What's the best form of vitamin D? Getting vitamin D right is so crucial to your overall health because it has so many wonderful effects. It has metabolic benefits like reduction of insulin resistance, reduction of blood sugar, reduction of triglycerides, a rise in HDL cholesterol, the good. It has bone health benefits. It has cardiovascular benefits, huge cardiovascular benefits, by the way. It improves mood. I first perceived the effects of vitamin D many years ago when I started taking vitamin D, and I had bad winter blues. I live in Wisconsin where in December it gets dark at about 4 o'clock or 4:30. Those short days really depressed me. And when I got up in the morning, it's real hard to get going, get to work. Well, once I took vitamin D, just a few days in, I felt this heavy weight of the dark days just completely lift. And I found myself not caring at all about the short days. And it was a dramatic difference for me in mood. And I've seen similar results in other areas and so many other people. I've seen people's mental clarity improve. I've seen their metabolic measures on blood work improve dramatically. I've seen their muscle strength go up. So many benefits. But you got to take the right form. Having checked vitamin D blood levels at 25 hydroxy vitamin D blood level thousands of times, I learned some very important lessons along the way. One of the lessons you learn is the form of vitamin D really matters. First of all, vitamin D is a hormone of sorts. And so when it comes to hormones, you want to only take human hormones. Humans should only take human hormones. This was vividly illustrated by the Premarin debacle. If you may remember, Premarin was horse estrogens. So many years ago, Premarin was the #1 most widely sold drug in the world. And it sold to women because it was thought to lead to all sorts of benefits. So many, many millions of women took Premarin based on the hopes of reducing endometrial cancer, breast cancer, reducing cardiovascular death and heart attack, and other purported benefits. Well, the clinical trials finally came out. The HERS trial, the Women's Health Initiative, Premarin increased risk for endometrial cancer, increased breast cancer, increased cardiovascular death and heart attack, and accelerated dementia. That was an example of what happens when humans take non-human hormones. Human women taking horse estrogens. And by the way, why were horse estrogens being given to women? Because they were patent protectable. That's the key for Big Pharma to maintain their billions of dollars of profits. They want very solid patent protection. Well, same issues with vitamin D. You want to take the human form. What's the human form? The human form is cholecalciferol, or D3. But the prescription form of vitamin D, and the form sometimes delivered to you in food, is D2, or ergocalciferol. Those are two very different things. It's become clear over the years that D3 raises blood levels far more effectively than D2. D3 lasts much longer in the bloodstream. Here's a graph of a single dose of 50,000 units of vitamin D3 or D2 given to volunteers. You can see that the D3 raises blood levels to a much greater level than the D2, even though the doses were the same, and the effect of that single dose of D3 persists far longer than D2. D2 also doesn't bind to the vitamin D protein in the bloodstream as well. It binds weakly and then it's cleared more readily. So there's no reason to take D2 over D3. We also know that D2 doesn't have the same kind of benefits. So athletes, for instance, can take D3 and gain increased strength. D2 doesn't do that. D3 reduces fractures. D2 does not. So there's a big difference between D3 and D2. And if you're human, and I believe you are, you should only take the D3. The prescription form is D2. Why would that be? That's ridiculous. Nobody should be taking the prescription form, nor D2 capsules or tablets. Another lesson learned, having checked thousands of vitamin D blood levels, is that it's the oil-based gel cap form that works the best. That is a little capsule with an oil vehicle inside. So let's say somebody starts with a low blood vitamin D level of, say, 10 nanograms per milliliter, and I aim for 60 to 70 nanograms per milliliter. I put that person, let's say, on 14,000 units of vitamin D. They come back a few months later, their level is 67 or 71 nanograms per milliliter. Right in the ballpark, right? But I learned that tablet forms rarely ever generate those kinds of rises. So let's say somebody starts once again with 10 nanograms per milliliter, and that person goes on 14,000 units of vitamin D as a tablet. They come back several months later, level goes from 10 to 13 or 12. I saw this happen hundreds of times. It became clear that the tablet forms were very poorly or erratically absorbed. Some people tried to get it to be absorbed by consuming their tablets with a fat-containing meal, but even then, it wasn't very successful and generated fairly erratic levels. So I don't think it's worth even trying with the tablet, because the gel caps are inexpensive and widely available. You can also take vitamin D as a droplet form. But I found that the blood levels generated were so wildly variable that it was hard to really know what the dose should be. Somebody would go on, let's say, 14,000 units after that starting level of 10, and they come back levels 48, then 78, then 60, then 35. It was just so widely, it was just almost impossible to manage. So if you must use droplet form, say you have an infant, just try to generate as consistent a droplet size as possible. I think that's where the variation is coming from. Difficulties in regulating the droplet size out of that dropper. Now, in my view, we aim for a 25-hydroxy vitamin D blood level of 60 to 70, typically achieved, by taking 5,000 to 6,000 units per day. Now, that varies widely. That's only an average for most people. There are people I've seen who generated perfectly fine blood levels with 1,000 units a day. And then there are people who require 20,000 units a day, because there's great variation in need and your response to vitamin D. For instance, the more overweight you are, the higher your dose needs. That's because fat cells have the peculiar behavior of sequestering or holding on to vitamin D. Your skin color factors in. The darker your skin color, the more your vitamin D you're going to need to generate that same blood level. Age plays into it, because vitamin D is activated in the skin upon sun exposure. But the older we get, the less we are able to activate vitamin D, such that I see snowbirds coming back from Miami or someplace south back to the northern Midwest, and I'd say, let's check your vitamin D blood level. They say, no, don't bother. Look at my tan. I've got a dark leather brown tan and very small tan lines, yet their blood level of vitamin D would be 14 or something like that. So people lose the ability. It varies, but most people lose the ability to activate vitamin D in the skin, and thereby they need higher doses the older they are. Also, be aware that there can be seasonal variation, particularly if you're younger. Younger meaning younger than 30 typically, where if you get a lot of sun exposure in the summertime, say, you may have to reduce your vitamin D level. The only way to know that is to get a blood level in summertime and in wintertime. I would say about 1 in 5 people have to seasonally adjust their dose. Let's just say, for example, you start at a level of 15 nanograms per milliliter, and you go on 8,000 units, and it gives you a wintertime blood level of 72. So you're good, right? Summertime comes along, you spend a lot of time outside with a lot of surface area of your skin exposed, and the level goes to 103. You'll have to reduce the dose, maybe to something like 5,000 units a day. And then you do that with each change of the seasons. So that's an easy way to do it, though it does require some blood work. You know, if your doctor won't do the blood levels, you can do them yourself. You can get them for about $40 or $50 with a finger stick. So it's very easy to get now your blood vitamin D levels so that you can adjust your dose. Because typically the doctor doesn't know how to do that, which I find shocking, because most of my I'm talking about mainstream MDs, not some of the much better functional medicine doctors or the integrative health or chiropractors. They're much better at this kind of thing. But mainstream doctors, such as those in the hospital, primary care doctors, know almost nothing about how to dose adjust vitamin D, and that's why they write prescriptions for D2, the inferior form of D, when D3 you can get at Costco or Sam's Club or something like that. So, unfortunately, you really can't rely on your doctor to manage vitamin D very well. You can do a far better job, but just know that you want the D3 or cholecalciferol, the human form, and you want it as an oil-based gel cap whenever possible.